From 2012, it's John Carter, starring Taylor Kitsch and Lynn Collins. Now, this is a film that people either don't know about or they know about it for all the wrong reasons. There was a lot of controversy when it was being made. It cost a fortune, and it lost a fortune for Disney, and that's why most people have heard of it. However, I had seen a few excerpts of the film, and it looked interesting, and I convinced you to watch it.
Yes, I was hesitant to watch this because the title is John Carter, so I had no clue what this was about.
And I agree with that, and that's a huge marketing problem with the film, and they've admitted that since it came out. Most people didn't know what it was about. Case in point, as a huge genre fan, you would think I would know who this character was, but I really wasn't familiar with the Edgar Rice Burroughs pulp novels upon which it was based. And as it turns out, I really like the storyline here, and I don't think it's a bad film. I think time will allow more people to discover the film instead of dismissing it because of the controversy that surrounded it and the fact that it didn't do well financially when it came out, which I think is tied into that.
I really liked this too. I feel like the characters in here are so good, and the actors acted it out really well here, and I feel like it just works.
They definitely fit the roles. Taylor Kitsch as John Carter and Lynn Collins as Deja, the Princess of Mars. Of course, that's the book upon which it's based, The Princess of Mars. Interestingly, these novels of John Carter influenced George Lucas when he was making Star Wars, and you could also see elements of this in Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and even Indiana Jones. So these books were hugely influential, and you can see aspects of it in the film, and it's a lot of fun. In fact, John Carter has aspects of both Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, I think.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was very cool to see the similarities and try to figure them out and stuff. I also thought that the animation here was very cool, the way they made Mars.
Yes, the CGI work was excellent. And for me, I enjoyed the Tharks and the animation here far more than I enjoyed the Na'vi and the animation in Avatar. I believed this more, and I felt like it worked more, especially because the source material is a pulp novel.
I really believed this. I don't think there was one thing that I didn't believe watching it as a movie. I don't like Avatar, and that's because the characters there were creepy. I didn't think that these creatures were creepy.
Which is interesting because I think you're supposed to in some ways.
Right.
I also like the fact that they incorporated a lot of humor into this. I love the fact that when John Carter introduces himself to the ruler of the Tharks and he's explaining he is John Carter of Virginia, the leader of the Tharks only picks up on Virginia, and they call him Virginia, and it's hilarious. And it comes back, it recurs throughout the film, even at the end, which is a lot of fun. So this definitely has a sense of humor. I think Taylor Kitsch plays that sense of humor very well. He plays the character at times tongue-in-cheek when it's appropriate, and I think he does a good job with that. Similar to the way Gil Gerard played Buck Rogers. He'd be serious when he needed to, and you believed him as an action hero, but he had a fun sense of humor about things, which made it more interesting to watch.
Yes, I agree. I really liked John Carter. I really liked the character here. And actually, I forgot that this whole movie really was kind of like a flashback type of thing. And for me, that's a sign that this movie is really good, because I was so engrossed in the movie that I forgot about the very beginning.
That's right. So when they go back at the end, it's framed by his life on Earth, which is in the late 1800s. He's a Civil War veteran, and it's that late era of the 19th century, which is very interesting. And I like that the character is pulled from there as opposed to being pulled from a modern day setting. And you forget that he was in that cave and he was fleeing the cavalry who was trying to enlist him, basically. And that was a great scene too. That it looks as good as a cavalry picture at the beginning as it does as a science fiction film in the middle. And then we go back to that Victorian setting later when his nephew Ned, who is Edgar Rice Burroughs, frankly the author of the novels, comes back into the story and we understand what's going on. And this was another one of those films that they had 2 sequels planned for, and because this bombed, we most likely won't see those sequels with this cast. I think that we will see John Carter again. The rights have reverted back to the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate, and somebody will want to make films of this character. And I hope they do, because I really like the character.
I really liked the character too. I don't know, it reminded me of like what a Western in my mind would be, I guess, because it was filled with action, but then John Carter is such a different character than I have seen. He's kind of like Indiana Jones in a way.
I agree. And I like the Princess of Mars. I like Deja Thoris just as much. I thought her character was extremely interesting. She was different. She's not exactly like a Princess Leia character, although she's strong. She's still a little different because she's got an intellectual base to her, because she is sort of a scientist in a way. She's trying to discover this ninth ray, I think it was, and what it would do for the people. And so she's a scholar, but she's also a warrior. And I love that. Another example of the humor is when she's fleeing for her, she doesn't want to get married to this ruler of another city, and she's fleeing that. And when Carter first encounters her, he thinks he has to protect her. He's from the late 19th century on Earth. So he grabs the sword and he says, "Stand behind me." And then she winds up with the sword eventually, and he watches her and he says, "Maybe I should stand behind you." And then later she revisits the joke by telling him later in the film, when they're in another situation, "Stand behind me," which is pretty fun. You know, I found her very strong, and they were a good match. You could feel they had great chemistry on screen.
I really liked both of them together. I really liked both of them on their own. I feel like there's not one thing about this movie that I really didn't like.
I liked Sola, who is the daughter of the head of the Tharks, and she winds up traveling with them on kind of a quest. And I love Woola, which is this dog, but it's also kind of a sea lion and a hippo too. But it's hard to explain. He's very cute, he's very fun, he's very fast, he provides a lot of humor as well, but he's a good companion for them, in the same way that Chewbacca is to Han Solo, where you trust him and he actually helps. He's part of the group as opposed to just being a pet.
Yes, I really liked Woola. He or she is probably my favorite character, or one of my favorite characters. I really liked John Carter. I don't know, it just adds something to the movie.
I agree. I think in the future, if people give this film a chance and it's discovered, they will find that it's an enjoyable film to watch. And I thought it had a lot of qualities about it that made it fit in that epic category in some ways. I realize it was a bomb. I realize it's probably not to everybody's taste, but the three of us all enjoyed it. In fact, after the first half hour, I asked both you and Colton, "Do you want me to turn it off?" And I thought you might not like it. And both of you were like, no, we love it.
Yes.
And you wanted to see the whole thing. And I enjoyed it just as much. I thought the visuals were great. It looks great. I think the movie stuff suffered from poor marketing, and the fact that its director was a little arrogant about the marketing, because he kind of took that over and wouldn't allow trailers to be structured in such a way to promote the film. And he was the one that decided to title it just John Carter when it was going to be John Carter of Mars, which would have, I think, told people more about the film. He wanted to appeal to a broader audience. I think he made some decisions that maybe he should have allowed other people to make who were more expert in that field, and perhaps this would have done better at the box office initially.
I really liked this. I feel like they could have done better on the title. That way I would have been more excited to watch it. But other than that, I really liked this. I really didn't have a problem with it. So for me, it's one to see.
For me, it's one to see too. If you think of it in the same vein as the matinees when you were a kid, when you went to the movies and had a fun time, that's what this movie is. I don't know if you would consider it epic. I don't know if you would consider it a good film, but the film is a lot of fun and very, very enjoyable, and I had a good time with it. So, one to see.
See what I did there?
Oh, Daddy.